Okay, well, let's talk about the syllabus for the class. Oh, I forgot to point out that the syllabus is available at the course homepage, and you can click on syllabus right there. I think it's also under content. Yeah, under general class items, there's the course syllabus as well right there. So you can go to either one. But I'm going to go back to the main page because it'll show up bigger that way. Here we go. Here's the syllabus. All right. So there's me, there's the office hours and our office location, email address. Because it's a summer class, I don't really have any office hours, but we'll use Remind to communicate back and forth. So you can text me or write me anytime through Remind, which I'll show in a minute, making sure that you are added to Remind. That's important. You have to do a step to do that. So this is an introduction to the methods of research with the intent of training students to become consumers, users, and producers of education research from a perspective of critical objectivity. Students will be exposed to a number of different research methods and strategies utilized in education and related disciplines. One thing that I wanted to mention in my past, I should have mentioned in my last presentation about myself in the course, is that your research study that you choose to do cannot be something that is not human subjects related. In other words, your research that you do, it doesn't necessarily have to be education research per se, but it does have to have human subjects in it. So that's one requirement that you need to think about too, is that whatever the research you do, it can't just be a nice treatise on the geologic formations of a certain area. It can't be research on, let's say, the growth of trees in the grove outside of town. Those are not human subjects. Those are tree subjects or geological formation subjects. So in other words, it has to be about some aspect of human behavior. And education research, of course, is fine. You're talking about, student achievement in different settings. You're talking about maybe the effects of motivational strategies on student motivation. Those kinds of things are certainly human subjects related. But you can do a lot of other examples, such as athletic performance as a result of a certain treatment. And those are human subjects, right? Because they're athletes who are performing the thing. So be thinking about that too. It needs to have human subjects in research. All right. So required textbooks is this Educational Research Competencies for Analysis and Applications, 11th edition, and Publication Manual for the American Psychological Association. Okay, we have a lot of technical requirements, being able to access D2L, Desire to Learn. I guess they're calling it Brightspace now, so hey, it's Brightspace. It's pretty bright. And it has changed. The interface has changed, as we will see. All right. So let's go to response times. Yeah, typically within 24 hours I'll respond. On the weekends maybe a little longer. And within 6 days after the assignment due date is when I will get grading done. Certainly within that. Usually it's earlier than that. Okay, so the goals for the course are apply factual knowledge in the field of research and design, construct a research proposal using course material in order to improve thinking, problem solving, and decision making. That's a big part of your grade, is creating that research proposal. But here are the objectives. You're going to write a literature review, a methods section, a results section, a discussion section, and a references section using the APA style. So yeah, whatever you write in this course does have to be APA style. And we'll learn about that style as we go along. There's some learning modules that I provided, and also the APA manual, of course. Understand the research process, including development of hypothesis and selection of research designs. Identify distinguishing features of different research designs and the strengths and limitations of each one. And a lot of these come from your reading of the textbook on research. Read and analyze a variety of print and non-print resources relating to a selected research problem. Know the difference between quantitative and qualitative research design. Understand which types of information are provided by descriptive and inferential data analysis methods and the assumptions of each. So that's data analysis. Interpret the results of data analysis and discuss their meaning. And then understand the legal, ethical, and diversity considerations in research studies. And evaluate the quality of published research, including discussing the implications of a study in view of the strengths and weaknesses of a research study. This one's kind of interesting to me. I think that a lot of people tend to read research studies without really being critical of them. And I hope that you won't do that after this class. I hope that you will be critical of the research studies that you review, because the truth is that much of what is published out there, much of the research studies are false. It's interesting to think about that. So then why are we reading so many of them? Well, hopefully we can evaluate them and determine whether they're quality or not. So those are the different objectives for the course. The instructional methods for the course are just online things. We'll have a course textbook, maybe some articles, discussion and completion of assessments and assignments. The tools for interaction we'll be using are in D2L. And attendance is determined by your online participation and submission of assignments. That's an important one to remember, so be sure to stay current with the class. This class is a difficult class. It's not an easy one. You're going to have to do a lot of work each week, especially in the summertime when it's condensed. But I think that most people do okay as long as they keep up in their work. That's a real big key. Okay, so in this class I do have Turnitin turned on so that I can check, to see what items you have borrowed from elsewhere, which you're going to be borrowing a lot of things from elsewhere, especially with a literature review, which is almost entirely borrowing things from other places and talking about what the research says. But what I want to see is that you're not plagiarizing. In other words, that you are citing each thing that you borrow in the proper way. So if it's a direct quote, you cite it differently than if it's just paraphrasing from a source. And I want to see that you're doing that. So be sure to be careful on that. Make sure you understand and know the expectations there that'll be taught to you. Alright, so let's see. We'll go to the Americans with Disabilities Act. If you have any disabilities for which you might need accommodations, be sure to contact the Director of Disability Services and they will let me know about that. There are assignments due in this class. Surprise. Okay, so of course you knew that. There are 3 exams. So previously in this class we had a quiz or 2 each week. And I just found that those were really taking up a lot of students' time. And so instead of quizzes each week, I decided to set 3 exam times, and we're going to have those exams during the week. So on the Monday of that week, the exam will start. It will close on Saturday night. Weeks go from Monday to Saturday night. And you'll be able to take those 3 exams during the 3 weeks that are designated for those exams, which are, I think it's the 3rd week of class is the first one. Then you have a resources section, and that includes some assignments such as the city certification, letter of consent, research activity, and evaluate a research article. It tells what they're worth, 20% of the grade for all of those items. Discussions, there are various discussions that will occur most weeks of the course. And then you have your research proposal. And again, so exams are 25% of the grade, resources are 20% of the grade. Discussions 15, and research proposal is 40% of your grade. So you're going to do these different steps. You're going to do a preliminary literature review, a proposal description, design participants' procedures, literature review, and final proposal. And some of those things you'll submit to me and I'll give you feedback on. Some of them will be a final submission, so you'll have to submit it without getting too much feedback or without being able to change it. Now, what I'm asking you to do, though, items in the research, resources and research proposal, especially categories, should be submitted in the appropriate Dropbox in the PDF document format. So that means that you have to actually go, if you have a Word document open, you have to go to File and then Save As, and choose PDF as the format that you upload your document to. The reason why I do that is not because I just want to make you do one more step. It's because I want to be able to add my own, write my own things on your document, and it's with the D2L grader it will only allow that on PDFs. So I can actually mark up your document and then send that back to you with my pencil and so forth. So that's nice. I can send it back to you and give you all the corrections that you might need, or many of them, and then you can resubmit that assignment if you want to. We'll talk about resubmission in a minute. Here's the grading strategy, or grading scale. 91 to 100 is A, 81 to 90 is B, and so forth. Alright, so for the exams in the class, there are 3 of them. You may use course materials to complete the exams. Be sure to note how many minutes are available for each exam. So each exam might have a different time available. I'm thinking about doing 2 hours. So there are only 2 attempts allowed to complete exams, but all attempts must be completed before the due date and time. If you choose to take an exam twice, you'll receive the highest score of the 2 attempts. Okay, so you have an opportunity to kind of take the exam again. But again, it might not have the same questions each time, so that's one thing to consider too. But, you know, it's worth taking again because you can receive the highest score that you receive out of the 2 attempts. So it's definitely worth taking the time if you have the time to do it. If you don't, then maybe you don't want to. So they'll become available on Monday morning of an exam week and close on Saturday night of the same week. So those are exams. You can use course materials. But I will say that you want to make sure that as you're reading, most of the exams will come from the readings. So as you're reading, you might want to highlight things or at least focus on different areas or take notes so that you have the time to answer all the questions on the exam within the time period. So don't just plan on trying to wing the exam. Make sure that as you're reading, like this week you're going to read chapter 1 and 2. Make sure you take the time to take notes on that or highlight different things that you're reading on that so that you can make sure you get the exam. You know, you can do the exam a lot easier that way. Plus you'll remember the material that you're trying to learn a lot better. So discussion involves 1 initial response for each discussion board topic and then reply to a minimum of 2 classmates. Those are for discussion weeks. And then it lists out the research requirements or the resources requirements and research proposal requirements. But it will tell you about those as we go along as they become due. Let's see, resubmits though. For some assignments, if you are unsatisfied with the grade you received on an assignment that you handed in on time, you have the opportunity to improve the assignment based on instructor feedback and hand it in again within 1 week of receiving feedback for another review. This gives students the opportunity to improve their performance and learning. But don't just hand something in that's not finished just because you know you can resubmit. That won't work. And if you hand in an assignment late, you do not have the option to resubmit it. You just have to take the late points for it. So I think this will help you to be on time. And it is important for you, for your own learning and your grade, to be on time. So the option to resubmit assignments is available for the preliminary lit review, proposal description, design, participants' procedures, and literature review. The resubmit option is not available for the final proposal, letter of consent, and evaluate a research article, or for exams and discussion activities. And that's just simply because it doesn't make sense to try to redo a discussion or an exam, or a letter of consent, and so forth. And late assignments, so they're due on the date and time in the content area of D2L. Without prior arrangement or documentation, late assignments receive a 10% penalty if up to 1 week late, 20% if more than 1 week but less than 2 weeks late, and assignments that are more than 2 weeks late will not be accepted for any credit. So you do not try to do this. Do not go through the whole class missing an assignment and then at the very end expect to be able to submit that assignment at the end of the semester. It just doesn't work. You will never learn as much. You will never know the topics that you were supposed to know from this class if you try to do that. Okay, that's the syllabus.